Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread, the place that brings people together around the table. And today we're joined by Patrick Chalhoub, the Executive Chairman of Chalhoub Group here at Sushi Samba. Welcome, Patrick, and thanks so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure being with you, and I'm sure we'll enjoy a good lunch and a good discussion.
You know, your family story is very unique. You were born in Syria, your family's originally from Syria, migrated to Lebanon. On the way, you went to Kuwait and then found yourself in Dubai. What took your family and what was the thinking behind this migration, and how did you eventually make it here to the UAE?
Simply, my family was based in Syria, and my parents decided to develop luxury and bring luxury French art de vivre to Syria, to Damascus. They were really in love with it. And then when they started the business, they felt that the market which they are tackling is so tiny, so small. I mean, we are speaking in the 50s, in the mid of the 50s, so tiny that the only way for them to develop was either into going into different other activity, but they had the passion which of what they were doing, or to expand in a different other territories. And since the late 50s, they started developing their business to the Gulf region, to Kuwait, to Dubai, to Abu Dhabi. It wasn't yet to UAE, to Saudi Arabia. So they started developing their business outside Syria.
And the business then, you're talking about the business, but it was nothing like it is today. It was selling one brand.
It was selling to individual one brands or few brands. But I would say just to develop what they had to do, they felt it was important to go and conquer other territory.
And this is both your parents. They established it together.
Yeah, my father and mother, and they did it together. But then in the early 60s, I would say there had a regime change in Syria, political instability, difficulty to operate regionally from a place like Syria. Also schools which were not anymore adapting for their children, so for my brother and myself. So in 63, 5 years after I'm born, they moved to Lebanon, which was a better platform in order to continue their activity, which wasn't based in Lebanon, which was mainly developing it towards the other countries, the Gulf countries, including Iran. Iran was a big market for them at that time, and including the Gulf country. So we moved to Lebanon at that time, and I have made my school years in Lebanon at the time where doing business out of Syria was becoming impossible. Getting the right education in Syria was becoming impossible. And then we were hit by the civil war in Lebanon in 75. So how do you face adversity? And there is a lot of learning from it, because with this kind of adversity, you lose everything, and then you recompose and you reassess yourself, which is the essence of life. I mean, how can you, at every few years, imagine that everything you have built is disappearing and rebuild yourself again with the same kind of activity?
But is this what happened to the family?
This is what happened to the family.
They had to rebuild.
They had to rebuild. And in 75, moving to Kuwait, which was a small base they had started in 69. Myself, I went to France to continue my college years and to continue learning and developing before joining my family business. But in the beginning, I didn't want to join the family business. I was very good in mathematics, and I want to perform into research on mathematics applied to the brain, which we will call today artificial intelligence. But this was back into 1973, 74. Really? This was my dream. I mean, to apply what I like to the brain and to see how we could use the best our brain in order to develop a lot of
What went wrong? And I mean, obviously I'm joking.
But the civil war of Lebanon. So it forced my family to move out, and it forced me to rethink, to say, my family would need me for the business. Let me focus on trying to help and support the family rather than go into dreams which perhaps will never materialize in business. So it changed my path as a person. And then I made studies which were much more relevant to joining the family business before joining the family business in Kuwait. And to go back to history, history repeated itself again with the Iraqi invasion in 1990, which forced us to move to what we felt should become our base, because already we were feeling that Dubai was a place where we could operate as a regional organization much easier than Kuwait, which were becoming more and more focusing on the local market. So we had planned our move to Dubai since 88, 89, and we said within 5 years, our head office should move to Dubai. And what happened in 1990, we were left with a choice, either to accelerate and to move to Dubai, or, like all our friends told us, wait up till the end of the war and you see. But we didn't wait. We said, so happen what will happen, we still need to continue our activity, so let us move. So it accelerated our movement to Dubai and to move here and to operate from here.
Were your parents keen on making that move because they've already experienced war, because they said...
So in 63, they took the decision. In 75, they took the decision. In 1990, their decision was to say, we will stay in Kuwait. A captain will never leave a boat when a boat is sinking. So we will be the last one who would leave Kuwait if I have to leave Kuwait. So it's a decision I had taken with my brother because we were on holiday outside Kuwait. And at that time, it was very difficult to communicate with them. So this fourth episode has been decided by my brother and myself to accelerate our movement to Dubai. And then when Kuwait was re-established, my parents stayed at least for 10, 15 years still in Kuwait, even if the headquarters was moved here, visiting us more often here. But they decided to stay in Kuwait while the head office had moved, and we were going to a new phase of our activity at that time.
I guess the business always revolved around luxury and bringing luxury into a region that didn't have the same appetite that it does today, but you believe that the potential was here.
I have to recognize the story started with my father and mother. And my father and mother were absolutely fascinated by the French culture, by the French lifestyle of living. We used to speak French at home, and really felt that they would love to encourage this bridge between the Middle East and France. They would have a role to play. They also used to love beautiful products. They really loved the beauty of the object, of the product and its signification and how to put it in function.
Did you inherit that?
Yes, somehow I would say yes, because I have lived it with my parents, I have lived it with my wife, so I definitely have inherited it.
But as a child, maybe your mind was elsewhere.
Yeah, I was a nice boy. I wasn't a revolutionary boy. I was quite nice, but obviously I had also some other dreams which I had to make from myself. And this is where they felt they could make out of it a living and not only a passion and a love about it. And it's amazing, the story started, they were invited at the embassy, I think it was the Argentinian embassy, and the wife of the ambassador was complaining, can you imagine we don't find any silverware in Syria? I want to set up nicely my table and we don't find nice silverware. So it rang a bell in their mind, and this is where they started with the silverware brand, which was Christophe, which was the first brand which my family started with. But so it rang the bell. And since that time, they were quite faithful to the same kind of activity, be it into homeware, tabletop, perfume, fashion. So everything which was portraying this French lifestyle. Obviously, we don't only promote and partner with French brand anymore. But it's still going to the refinement into
a European flair.
Yeah, but it could be American as well. It could be whatever, but which gives some refinement, and things have evolved and the people have evolved, but always portraying to the same part of it. And then, in terms of business model, the business models have shifted quite a lot from the early days. One, we didn't have the means to even buy the products and sell them. So our activity was mainly an intermediate. We used to call it delegation, so we're delegated we moved it to become ambassador of the brands, supporting those brands to be a little bit well known. And most of those brands were very tiny companies as well, because luxury was not at all what it is today. And really moving it and trying to get some few customers, either who were appreciating the aesthetic or perhaps training them and making them appreciate those kind of it. So it was really a business of one-to-one, what we will call today direct to consumers, and to link the product. Gradually, there was a network of distribution which was created, and we moved from just being the ambassador to being perhaps the distributor, the more than anything else. And gradually, the movement continued to move back into retail and to develop retail.
What did the company look like when you joined?
So we were a company of about 300 people, and today we are about 16,000 people. We were a company which was dealing with probably 15 partners. Today we deal with about 300 partners. And I would say our database of customers would be 50,000 customers. And today, on record, we have probably 6 or 7 million customers.
And what your role when joining? What was the first role within the company?
So before joining, and we kept the tradition, we had to work outside the family business. And I worked in the States in the marketing department of a shaving company. So really into the marketing aspects and seeing how marketing was developing before joining the company in Kuwait. And my role at that time...
How long did you work before?
About 18 months.
18 months. So you had to kind of get outside experience, and then you prove yourself
the idea was
worthy
to
of the
get
company.
More 3 to 5 years. I didn't resist 3 to 5 years, but I came back after 18 months. And my first job when I joined the company was into the marketing, but I took one brand, one perfume brand, a brand called 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐬, which hardly exists anymore, in order to promote it. And I was in charge of promoting it, everything outside Kuwait, because my brother was already there and my parents were very much in Kuwait. So since early days, so since 1990, I was more in charge of working with our customer in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, and in other countries, but specifically on this specific brand. To make a long story short, 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐬 became the #1 perfume brand into the region, which is a position which they never had anywhere. And I think it was about, so I joined in 79, so it was about 3 years later or 4 years later, we have been contacted by some of the most renowned brands in the world, saying you have done such a fantastic job for this brand that we would appreciate if you could also promote our brand.
Was that a bit of a turning point to suddenly have brands come to you?
I mean, it has been definitely a turning point. The turning point was to move into distribution and then to move into retail. The turning point was to get some of those brands which were not represented into this part of the world, which had much more potential, and which were attracted by the work which we have been able to do with some of the other points. The turning point also was to have strong teams which we have built together. Since the beginning, I would say we have always believed in our people and making sure that the people can make the difference if they can have an impact. And therefore, if you are more than one in order to work and to deal and collaborate, you demultiply everything which is being there. But also clear vision, clear ambition, which were that, and going back to an execution in an orderly way, without dispersing ourselves too much. So remaining quite focused, but also getting into the ambition.
Good afternoon.
Welcome
to Sushi Samba.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you. So let me introduce you to our best sellers and dishes which are a must actually.
Wow.
Yes, so that's gonna be our signature sushi platter. Okay, so we're gonna have a selection of our best sellers, shrimp tempura, the Samba Dubai roll, bahia, and a nice selection of the nigiri and the sashimi. okay? Along with Peruvian corn salad
Wow.
with the jalapeno dressing, okay? Along with the black cod.
Wonderful.
So,
Please, Patrick, enjoy.
Thank you.
So you moved the headquarters to Dubai in 1990, same time that you yourself moved here, although you had visited previously. And today Dubai is synonymous with luxury. But I can imagine that at the time you would have to convince certain brands to sell here and to take a chance on this market.
Absolutely. So when we came to Dubai in 1990, the market in luxury was still underdeveloped. Very few franchise stores by itself. And because of the situation of the region with the Iraqi invasion, very little appetite from our partners and from the brands to even develop further the region in general and Dubai in particular. So it has been long discussion with our partners to see how we could accelerate their implementation in Dubai. Open, if not freestanding stores, open a corner, a shop-in-shop, making sure that we could bring some of those luxury tastes to Dubai, which were often present in Kuwait, but still not into the Emirates, but really making sure that we could bring them to Dubai.
As a business person, how do you know which brand will work and which is less likely?
There is some things which you could feel by instinct. There is some brands with whom you are connected and which you want to develop. And there is also trying to understand what the customer wants and how the customer does. Speaking more 70s, 80s, or 90s, because since that time, we have customers who became extremely knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable than us, extremely demanding and much more demanding. And the brands really saw that it was a fantastic opportunity. So the early years of the 70s, 80s in the region, or in the 90s when we established in Dubai, and we established at the same time a direct office in Saudi Arabia, were years, I would say, which were still years of exploration, years of conviction. I would say, and then the market has totally shifted from the year 2000, a much more sophisticated customer and becoming increasingly more knowledgeable, with also beautiful malls or beautiful environment or communities in which you could portray all of this. But even when it came to those malls, what was nice is that at the time of the development of Dubai Mall or Mall of the Emirates or some of the other outstanding mall, we had this collaborative relation with the developers in order to understand how can we create a journey which is pertaining for luxury. And probably one of the reasons why it has been so successful, certainly not the only reason, but one of the reasons was to try to create something keeping our customer at the heart of our thinking.
Is the customer always at the heart of the thinking, still?
Yeah, absolutely, more than ever. And today, the customer is the one who is empowered. In 20 years ago, the brand probably was more empowered. You had this iconic view. Everyone wanted to be, aspired to look like they are. Today, more than ever, the customer will know what he wants, want to identify his own personality, to portray it, to develop it. So he's not far off being just a follower anymore. Yeah.
If we look at an overview of Chalhoub Group, what would you say are the key moments of growth here in the region?
I will start with the oil boom into the mid of the 70s, which brought some wealth which have been a milestone for us. I would continue by us having brought one franchise brand, opened a franchise stores in 1982 in Kuwait. It was a Louis Vuitton franchise, and my wife opened a Chanel franchise store at the time where neither Louis Vuitton or Chanel had the success which they had today, but also bringing the franchise business, bringing a brand by itself and expressing the brand. And I remember the first years where we opened the stores, our customers were Japanese, 70%, and we established it in a hotel where there was the best Japanese restaurant which were there, because the customer which would come and know and buy those brands were more Japanese than the local customer. While today, 90% of our customers are local. Other milestone, I would say, in 1979, we have really moved into retail, and we opened our mini gallery of 10 shops in Kuwait, which had been quite a milestone. I remember at the early years, every time there was a head of state visiting Kuwait, the rulers of Kuwait would bring him to see the gallery and to put him. So we received the King of Spain, the President of France, so many celebrities. I'm not speaking about also every time we had to reinvent ourselves because we moved from a country to a country, which were quite interesting milestones for us. The other milestone which we have in our activity was changing our business model to partner with brand. So instead of becoming only their ambassador or only their retailer or their franchisee,
you're an investor.
Investing together. So sitting at the same side of the table and sitting and really focusing on our customer and how we develop it, instead of trying to build a business model which were convenient for the business partners, but not necessarily the most convenient for our customers.
But are there any brands that you don't see in the region yet that you'd like to bring here?
So, scouting brands is something which we really love to do. It's true that today, with our position into the market as one of the leading companies, we are contacted by many brands from many perspectives. So number one, we always study it, and we study the opportunity, we make focus group, and we see if there is any real opportunity for those brands. And we always examine if there is any things where we could bring value to the brand and where the brand could value to us and to our customer in order to do it. But at the same time, we spend a lot of time, our teams, scouting brands around the world and products to see if there is something which is relevant, which is upcoming. So answer is yes. We just are opening in 4 days a franchise of a brand called 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐷𝐬. I don't know if you know 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐷𝐬, from France, of course.
Wow.
Fantastic brand. We have been 4 years trying to convince them to enter the market in its early days, and we will be getting we already opened the e-site. We really try to understand where the market is evolving, how it is evolving, how our customer evolving, the appetite, and what's happening in Japan, in Korea, in New York, in Miami, in London, Paris. The other part is that we are seeing a lot of local brands today, be it in fashion, be it in beauty, which are developing, mushrooming here in Saudi Arabia and the other GCC countries. And there is some traction for them. And we are trying to play a role with this ecosystem of local luxury brands.
So constantly looking for new brands that you can introduce.
Yeah, but always trying to deliver things which we feel we can bring value, has a certain potential, and they can bring us value.
Chalhoub Group acquired Christoph, which is not coincidental, I would say, and probably a very important moment for you as a family, as this was the first brand that your parents were selling. Can you tell us about what led to that decision?
I would say definitely there is this emotional link, which we spoke about, the fact that it is the brand with which we started our business, and we developed thanks to which we developed our business, and we have been always very faithful to it, and it has been faithful to us. There was also the fact that Christoph has known perhaps certain years of darkness, where it hasn't developed the way it should develop, and we have seen that there is a much stronger potential into the brand than what the brand was and the way it has developed. And we felt that we would have probably the motivation, the willingness, and a little bit the savoir-faire of making it and turning it in a much more successful brand and developing it. In French, we say la belle endormie, the sleeping beauty, a sleeping beauty which has the potential where nothing was wrong, but a lot of possible potential which were there.
Does it have sentimental value for the family?
Yeah, it has. It has definitely sentimental value for the family, and it has this great potential I'm speaking about if we know how to unlock it and to unblock it and to move it forward and make it pertinent. And what's amazing is that in our work which we have been doing in 𝐶𝐶, the first work which we have done was to go back to the roots. So a lot of people were saying, so what are we going to do for the future? And the answer was say, we are going back to the roots, and we called it the retrofuturism, going back to the roots in order to build the future. So strengthening our roots in order to build the future. And this is where we are today.
Do you think your parents envisioned the company to become what it is today? I know you don't like the word empire, but do you think your parents had this type of growth in mind?
The answer is certainly not. But the answer, which is totally the truth also today, what we want to deliver is quality work. What we want to deliver is something which brings value to our partners and to our customer. And I think they would be, and they are, because my mother is still among us, very proud that we are able, as much as possible, because perfection doesn't exist, to deliver this quality work. And what they always say, you need patience and persistence. When we deliver quality work, you might not get the results today, but perhaps you'll get it tomorrow after tomorrow.
You've achieved really so much. Your market share is incredible, but you yourself, going to sleep at night, is there still a thought you have? Is still a dream or a milestone that you hope to achieve?
I mean, certainly 𝐶𝐶, the success of 𝐶𝐶 is very much in my mind into doing it. And the most important for me is transmission, to be able to transmit to the new generation, be it my children, my nephews, or be it our young team who are all stakeholders for the company, because average age is 32 years, to be able to create a sustainable business which will be there. Next year we'll celebrate 70 years, so we'll be there in 70 more years, if not much more.
Patrick Chalhoub, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks to you. Thanks for having me. It has been a real pleasure.